Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, May 19th of 2024. Now I have a beautiful message for you today that came in with some beautiful journal reflections this week, and I just kind of expanded on the whole idea that came in at the first of the week. I started journaling on Sunday after I went hiking. I had a beautiful Sunday after last week's message, and I just thought, I'm going to sit with my journal on this beautiful, beautiful spring day and see what comes in. Because this has been an interesting year, a very interesting year for me, and all the things that have been going on with me and my company and the things that I don't have any control over. But the biggest message that came in that I'm going to expand on today is this is what I wrote at the first of the week, actually last Sunday. You don't need to defend who you are. You know, I've found myself in this position of defending who I am as a person. And in reality, what happens is there are people that are going to make their own opinion of you. They're going to make their own perception of you. They're going to even judge you. And what you start to realize on a pretty high level is that it's really not about what other people think of you, because here's the thing, they're going to never, ever know who you are to the core and the soul of yourself. So here's some things that came in at the first of this week. So stay in a place of a quiet knowing of your soul's intent. You know, these are things I wrote to myself, trying to convince others who will never understand. And this is based on their own worldview, their perspective, and even their life path. You know, this can get really interesting when you feel judged based on other people's worldview and they really know nothing about you. It's a really, really interesting place to be in, because the thing is people think they know about you because they make a snap judgment. And they even look at things that maybe you put on social media. Maybe they had a conversation with someone else who knows you. But in reality, the only person who really knows your soul's intention is you. And if you can stay in integrity with that, then you're going to be golden, right? So trying to convince others who will never understand will only drain your energy and slow down the process. So whatever's going on, whatever might be happening in your life, if there's people who you find yourself in a position where maybe you're at their mercy a little bit, when you try to convince or try to force, this is again Dr. David Hawkins with his beautiful message of power versus force. When you try to force something, and it's really impossible to change someone else's worldview unless they really sit down with you and have a conversation, right? And I think that this happens less and less. A lot of times it can't happen, and a lot of times it's not supposed to happen. So just think, and this really was beautiful when I wrote this down, it'll only drain your energy and slow down the process. So this can be hard because sometimes we need to be patient. Only give your energy in thought and action to those who deserve it. You know, this dropped in so hard for me this week. I'm not going to give any angst or any forcing of defending who I am to anyone who doesn't deserve it. And this includes people who might be surprised if they knew that in my head I was thinking of them. Truly think about the people in your life. And then I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I wrote down 6 people. And actually in that includes 2 more people. So there's 8 people in this list. Truly think about the people in your life who suck away your positivity because you want them to see your perspective, which is another thing of defending yourself. You keep replaying thoughts, scenarios, over and over and over in your head. This is where overthink comes in. You think you can think your way into a different outcome. You know, I touched on this a couple of weeks ago because this is something I think that as modern humans, with all of the different things that are happening in the world, just the pure energies of what is happening. And we think that if we keep thinking about it, that we can actually change the outcome. I'm telling you, I'm so guilty of this. I sometimes catch myself and I think, what the heck? Me thinking about it does not change it. But here's the thing, you can take action, and I really love this. Truly think about the people in your life who suck away your positivity. Okay? And then I realized this, after I wrote all this down, it's better to stay quiet to protect yourself and your energy. It's actually better to stay quiet because you're not ever going to convince someone who doesn't give you the opportunity to defend yourself. You're never going to convince them. So at this point, at a certain point, you have to find a place inside of you that's still and quiet and protect yourself and your own energy. You know, and it becomes very, very empowering. This is, again, power. This is power, personal power versus trying to force something. It actually puts you in a really, really lovely, powerful place. I am being asked to release the old, friendships, relationships, etc., so that the new can come in. You know, I was hiking yesterday with a very, very dear friend, and he's been a friend for 25 years. He's been a hiking buddy for just as long. And he's one of those people who is very evolved. He's a deep thinker, and he's a deep listener. He's a compassionate friend who's been through a lot of his own trials and a lot of his own really hard, intense things in life. Like I think most of us have that. He has had something similar happen to him in his life and his business that I am currently going through and hoping to wind up soon. But we had the most beautiful conversation, and at the end of we talked and we hiked, and you know, there was a couple moments when I was so grateful that we were hiking and we were going up, and it was pretty steep, and I was a little bit out of breath, and I was grateful because I was kind of tearing up a little at some of the things he was saying and just some of the beautiful insights he was giving me. But he said something really powerful, and I don't know if I can remember it exactly, but it was very short. He said, God loves you so much that you get to experience these beautiful lessons that's going to evolve your soul. And something like that, like God loves me this much. And I was like, wow, I never thought of it that way. But you know, when you get a truth bump, you get goosebumps, you feel this little electric your scalp tingles, the hair in your arm stand up a little bit, you just feel this little tingle because you know it's truth. That's what I got, and it just brought a ton of tears to my eyes because I'm like, yeah, you know, at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. Nobody's getting out of here alive, and God loves me enough to give me these deep soul lessons. You know, maybe I'm burning off karma. Maybe I'm burning off generational karma. You know, and if I change my perspective, then it takes me back to the very beginning of what this whole video is about, is the need to defend myself becomes non-existent. And it's not like you realize you don't have control over some things, and it's better to go with the flow with the beautiful river. So I wrote down a few things that that really kind of go along with this. I think that when and I wrote, this list is 10 things, and it's really kind of cool when you release the need to defend yourself. Number one is you can embrace your authenticity. You get to just be who you are. You get to embrace the authentic you, and you don't have to make excuses for anything that you do. Now, I'm not talking about doing things that are bad or I'm not talking about any of that kind of thing. You can just simply embrace your authenticity, and you don't have to apologize for showing up wearing the wrong shoes, or maybe you're not dressed like everyone else. You get to embrace your own authenticity, and you don't have to defend it. I think that's amazing. This also brings self-validation, and here's what I wrote about that. we can seek validation from within rather than relying on others' approval. Our worth does not decrease based on someone else's inability to see our value. We just get to have self-validation. We don't need anyone else to validate us. This is really a beautiful thought process. And you know what I would really say? Maybe sit with each of these 10 things and maybe pause after embrace your authenticity and sit down and write, what does that look like for me? And then the second one, you get to self-validate. You don't need anyone else to validate you and your self-worth. Now the third one is that you basically become free from judgment. And this is, I can be quick to judge people, but I also realize this whole experience is giving me a deeper appreciation of what I don't know about others, and to not jump so fast into judgment, because I can be just like anyone else. I can judge other people based on just what I see and what my perspective is, and I think we like to think the worst. I think maybe it makes us feel better about ourselves, So to me, it becomes freedom from judgment, and it might even be freedom of judgment from ourselves, because we pretty harshly judge ourselves when really, for the most part, most people aren't even paying attention to what you're doing, right? The fourth one here, I think, is really amazing. And this really is courage in vulnerability. It takes courage to be vulnerable. And here's what I wrote about this. When we show our true self, it is a strength. It's not a weakness. When we are vulnerable, it leads to a deeper connection and more authentic interactions. I've really become a fan of long-form podcasts. Now, I won't watch, if the subject or the guest doesn't resonate with me, I'll watch a few minutes, or I'll watch 20 minutes or whatever. And if it's still not resonating with me, I'll stop. But I've found myself watching or listening. For the most part, I listen because I'm either walking, or I'm painting, or I'm doing something. I'm weeding in my garden. I'll put a podcast in my ear, and I have this big garden. I have this huge yard, and there's a lot of weeds. I don't spray anything, so I'm always out there weeding just to kind of keep on top of it, especially this time of year. But I've really become a fan of long form conversations, and it's amazing what happens when two people or two or three people, they sit down, they have a conversation, and they're vulnerable, and real truths come out, real authenticity. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. And some of the podcasts that I've been doing lately, and this is going to be actually picking up as my book comes out on the 28th of this month, so in 7 more days. Be Your Own Shaman is going to be shipped out. So if you went on and ordered it, thank you. It's going to be coming out, the chapter with the psychedelics. I'm really excited for people to get this in their hands. Super excited. But I've already done a couple of interviews, and when you get a podcast host who does a little bit of research about you, knows how to ask the right questions, and sometimes just lets a conversation flow back and forth based on just the way the questions are answered, and you get this authenticity and this vulnerability that can really take courage to bring out. And I think this is a really beautiful thing. So the fourth one there is courage in vulnerability, right? Now the fifth one is growth over comfort. Holy cow, right? This is so true for me, because I think as human beings, we like comfort. I'm a creature of comfort. I like things that are comfortable, but I'm also a person who has always loved exercise and intense exercise, pushing myself to a point where it's a little bit painful, but the results and the exhilaration is amazing. So this has been a true gift for me, because my dad and mom used to take us all up into the mountains for cookouts on a regular basis up where we grew up in Idaho. We'd drive up into the canyons, and we would make a campfire, and we would we'd take hobo dinners, or he'd get like this big iron skillet. My mom would make Dutch oven chicken, and she'd have a big bowl of homemade salad and different things to add to the dinner. And we'd be out there having this fun meal. Then we'd pack everything up, and my dad would let us literally run home behind this, usually a station wagon is what we had, this big station wagon. We'd hang off the sides of it, we'd drag sticks, but we would run, and it would sometimes be 4, 5, 6 miles. Sometimes I remember even going 8 and 10 miles from some of the places that we would go have a camp out, and he would go super slow. And I remember how exhilarating it was, and it was hard. Now granted, we were all little kids, and it's much easier, of course, when you're a little kid to run and run and run and run. But I think this is where me and my siblings really learned the art of suffering and the growth that you get from that. So growth over comfort. We didn't realize we were getting growth. We didn't really feel like we were suffering. We'd get out of breath, and it was just exhilarating. So I think as adults, we need to remember that the growth over comfort is super important. In fact, here's what I wrote. When we step out of our comfort zone and we don't have to defend our choices, it can be liberating and conducive to growth. We need to explore new possibilities without the burden of explaining yourself. I'm not saying keep people in the dark, but you will almost never defend your perspective to people who have a different perspective of you. And you really get to a place of, wow, this is painful, but I'm going to choose growth over comfort. And this is where, I'm going to go back to this. It's better to stay quiet to protect yourself and your energy. You lose so much positive energy when you try and try and try to defend yourself and protect yourself, because people have a certain perspective, no matter what it is. They might be in a profession that dictates. They might be in a maybe a broken system, whether it's a medical system or a political or a government system, or they might have gone through school to do something that they think is good. And anyway, I think this can there's a lot of nuances to this. So growth over comfort. Now the 6th thing I wrote here is inner peace. When you stop feeling the need to defend yourself, you gain massive, massive inner peace. And I have personally experienced this. And I will tell you, sometimes it still comes into my overthinking. My overthinking brain is like, oh, if they just knew me, if they just knew who I am, if they just really sat down with me, if they knew my deep love for this and my deep concern for this, and I overthink myself, and then I'm getting to a place where I jump out of that very quickly. And I will tell you the inner peace, because I've had moments where it's like, I need to shoot off an email because I need to defend myself. I need to make a quick phone call. I need to do a text. I need to, whatever. And I've had moments where I've actually done that. And then it's like, oh, it didn't get me anywhere. It made me feel worse. I felt like I was trying to force something. And then something came right back at me, and I got shot way down worse. And it drags on. Those are energy vampires. And you will never change their mind when you're stuck in a really crazy situation. So the inner peace, here's what I wrote about this. When you stop defending your every action or trait, you will find peace and tranquility in accepting yourself and moving through the world with confidence in who you are. And here's the thing too, all things come to an end. And I think it's really powerful to forgive yourself when you make mistakes in this whole thing of defending yourself, and then move through with grace and power, and learn along the way. And I think when I'm saying just this right now, it reminds me of what my friend said to me yesterday. How lucky are you that God chose you to get this, to learn this, have this growth, and to have this lesson. And you know what I think? I really think I'm burning off some serious generational karma that needed to go. It needed to go. That's crazy. Okay, so number 7 is empowerment through choice. Every day we have the power to choose how we respond to others. Every day every day and in every situation. Choosing not to defend your being is a form of empowerment that frees you from the cycle of external validation. Okay, let me say that again. When we choose to defend our being, we are defending our being and our being, okay? It is a form of empowerment that frees us from the cycle of external validation. You don't need anyone else to validate you. Wow, this one is so massive. This one is so massive. Number 8, this one is good. This gives boundaries. You set boundaries. Setting boundaries is a healthy way to respect yourself. It's okay to say no or step away from situations where you feel compelled to defend your existence. And if you're caught in something that is in process or not over, this one can be a little bit challenging, but then when you do it and you practice it, it becomes easier and easier. And so boundaries can come along with not needing to defend yourself. In fact, it becomes so beautiful. Number 9 is it allows you to focus on what matters. When you don't have to defend yourself, you get to focus on what does this make possible. This right there, right? When you're in a hard situation, no matter what that looks like, and you feel like you don't have control over it, you need to realize that first of all you do, because no one can control what's in your soul and what's in your heart and what's in your mind. You get that. You get to control all of that. So focus on what matters. This is what I wrote about that. Spread your energy on what truly enriches your life. Growth, joy, passion, and love. Spend your energy there rather than on convincing others about your worth. You don't have to do that. You get to decide and show your worth. And when you focus on these things, all of the things that take you on the path to enlightenment, joy, unconditional love, bliss, peace, then your worth is so much more than you trying to defend yourself. Your worth is amazing. Now, the last thing I wrote here, number 10, is you're leaving a legacy of integrity. And I think all of us, I can count myself in this category pretty hardcore, have done things that we are less proud of. But we're all human beings. We all make mistakes, all of us. And it becomes an interesting thing when you are able to forgive yourself, and then there are other external factors that don't forgive you and want you to suffer. That's always an interesting place to be, right? But you get to leave a legacy of integrity. And if other people don't believe that you're being integrous, that's not your problem. Okay? Here's what I wrote. Live in such a way that your life becomes a testament to your values and beliefs. You know what? I talk about this all the time. Set an example. Set an example of what it looks like to be integrous. And it doesn't matter if you've made mistakes that other people will not forgive you for, or want to make you suffer for, and they want to keep making you suffer for. You need to, first of all, especially if you can, release those people from your life as soon as you can. And I know this is tricky when it comes to families, sometimes deep, long friendships, or the friendships to me are way easier because those are easy to release with love, and for how they served you and what they gave you. And the family thing can be a little trickier, but it's also very possible. And I know many people who have deeper family connections within their friendship group and the people that they connect with on a soul level. I have a very small, tight-knit group of friends at this point that are in line with my soul's integrity. They love me unconditionally. I can tell them anything. I can speak my heart to them. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, because to me, before COVID, I had a massive group of friends. Now, I'm not saying they weren't nice people, but I didn't have boundaries around the huge group of people that I would come in contact with. I taught group exercise classes for 40 years, and the last 20 years was at an amazing gym here in Salt Lake City, and COVID effectively ended my teaching career. As far as, I was only at that point teaching once a week. I was running my business, and every Saturday morning I would get up early and I would go teach this step class, and 40 to 50 people would show up, come rain, snow, sunshine, and I would have this massive fun step class. It was a dance party step, and it was like my favorite thing. And because I taught for so long and there were so many like-minded fitness people in there, which I totally gravitate toward that, I began doing a lot of social interactions and dinners and parties with this group of people. And what happened is a lot of them I didn't click with outside of the gym, but I felt obligated to go to this party or obligated to have this or do this or, and it's not saying these weren't nice people, but what COVID did is I walked into the gym the second Saturday in March of 2020. I taught my step class. It was awesome and brilliant and so much fun, and I said, all right, see you guys next week. And that was it. That was the last class I taught. And it was a little bit bittersweet. I was a little bit angry for a while at the world for shutting down. And then I quickly realized, well, I got to go out at the top of my game. No one ever had to say, hey, Jane should probably retire from teaching. It was a beautiful thing. In fact, it's been 4 years and I still sometimes get that itch to teach. But my whole point of that is my friendship circle of people that I truly connect with on an absolute deep, you are my tribe, has shrunk down to a very, very tiny few, like less than 10, and even that into a group, I would say 5. And these are people that I don't have to do anything different than be me. They listen to me deeply, and I listen to them back. We have had similar experiences. We view the world in a way that I think is really meaningful, and we see truths that a lot of people can't see, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, right? So leaving a legacy of integrity is really beautiful. So let me read what I wrote after that. Live in such a way that your life becomes a testament to your values and beliefs, not a constant battle to prove yourself to others. These thoughts are not only motivational, but it can guide us toward a more fulfilling and grateful life when we don't have to defend. To me that was like, when this came in this week, I just thought, that is so good. And it was really, really helpful for me to, the biggest thing is what I wrote here. It's better to stay quiet, to protect yourself and your energy. Don't get caught. Don't get caught in the need to defend yourself. Now, I'm going to end with a couple of quotes from a person that I follow on Instagram. I'm not on social media very much, but I have a couple of people that I follow because there's some really great motivation that I find. This is a guy named Corey Mascara, and some of you might be familiar with him. He's got a pretty big platform, and he spent, I think it was 3 months in an ashram in India, and he had a guru who taught him some life lessons, and it might have been longer, but I wrote down a couple of his quotes that I thought were really relevant and really went along with this theme. So here's the first one. Desires that arise in agitation are more aligned with your ego. Desires that arise in stillness are more aligned with your soul. So desires that align with when you're agitated, the things that bubble up when you're agitated, that's more alignment with ego. But your desires that align when you are in a place of stillness, That's more in alignment with your soul. Like, that is so beautiful. It just reminded me of this whole theme. The second one is the moment before letting go is often when we grip the hardest, right? When we are ready to let go, that's when we're just like so tight. And then as soon as we let go, it's just like, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that last week. I should have done that yesterday. I should have done that a year ago. Why didn't I release that a year ago? Because we hold on so tight. And some of it might be we hold on so tight to habits we know aren't good for us. We hold on so tight to relationships that we know are not good for us. And we hold on the tightest right before letting go. So if that resonates with you, that can be a really beautiful thing, the whole letting go. There is no set of conditions that leads to lasting happiness. Lasting happiness does not come from conditions, but from learning to flow with conditions. Flow with the pace of life. Don't force. Use your power. Real confidence looks like humility because it comes from a place that does not require the validation of others. Right? Real confidence looks like humility because it comes from a place that does not require the validation of others. Oh, I love that so much. I love that so much. And then the last one is this. There are 3 layers to a moment. 3 layers to a moment. Your experience, your awareness of the experience, and your story about the experience. Be mindful of the story. We get to create the story. So let me read this last one again. There are 3 layers to a moment. Your experience, your awareness of the experience, and your story about the experience. So be mindful of your story. Be mindful of the story you're putting out there. Be willing to change your mind when you get new information. This is something that I really love because I think that piece right there is really starting to change humanity. And, I sometimes hear things and talk to people who maybe have a really kind of doom and gloom thought about the world and America and where things are going and, the fall of the empire. Every empire falls. But I don't think it has to be that way. I don't think it has to be the story that we write, the story that we leave. We have our experience and we have our story about the experience. Think about someone who you go through an experience with them, the exact same thing, and then maybe a month down the road, you're with that person and you're with some other people, and the person, maybe it's your person, is telling a story about the experience that you had. A lot of times, in fact, I would say almost every time, it seems like such common human nature. The story gets a little bit blown out of proportion. Some of the details get changed. And I think that the story we have about our experience is super important. And there's also another layer to that little example I gave. And I'm just going to tuck this in there because I think it's really important. We have this need for accuracy when, we want to correct someone when they say it, they give a detail or they expand a little bit or they exaggerate a little bit. I have this beautiful group of sisters, and every year we get together and we have a sisters weekend where it's just us, and we've been doing it for about 22 or 23 years. And about probably 10 years ago, what we do is we take a weekend, we go Thursday to Sunday. We usually go somewhere where none of us live. So a lot of times we fly somewhere. Most of the time we do. Sometimes we've driven, but most of the time we fly somewhere. We get a couple of hotel rooms, and we bond. Most of the time we share gifts with each other. We go out to eat. We walk. We hike. But this is a group of me and my sisters, and there's a lot of us. There's 9 of us, and not everyone goes all the time. One of my Native American sisters passed away a long time ago. So not everybody's, but for the most part, all of us are there every single year. And one of the things that came up about 10 years ago was this need for accuracy. And maybe I'm just tucking this in because to me it feels so important. And it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Like if your person is telling a story to a group of friends and you know that it was not, the details weren't, they were being exaggerated, or maybe the date was wrong or something, do you jump in and correct them? And you know what? I will tell you that conversation with my sisters actually shifted me, because I had that. It was like, my husband would be telling a story and he'd get the date wrong, or I would know he would exaggerate some of the details on purpose to make the story better, and I would jump in and correct him, and I realized I don't need to do that. So it might go along with the need to defend yourself. There's also this need we have for accuracy, right? Anyway, I hope that in this message there's some little nugget that resonates with you. We're heading into the last week of May, and next week is Memorial Day weekend. So I hope that you have a beautiful week ahead. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Are you one of those people that feels like you have to defend yourself all the time? And I think this is common, because we want people to have a good perspective of us. We want people to think the highest of us. But many, many times, other people and what they think of you is none of your business. And you might find yourself in a tricky, sticky situation where you think, well, I have to defend myself. And then you start to learn pretty quickly, especially if you're into something, and down the road when all this is over, this big thing I've been dealing with, I never dreamed it would drag on this long. Maybe one day I'll be able to share some details about what is happening, and yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like the growth that I have had is, I'm really trying to work my way toward gratitude for it, because I feel like there's been a lot of damage, but I can choose to look at it that way, or I can choose to not. And I would say about 90% of the time now at this point, I am out the other end of that, and I'm not a victim. I'm having gratitude for the growth, and I'm also becoming a person who's grateful that God chose me for these lessons. So I hope for you the same thing. We all go through really tough things. I know if you got to the end of this, 38 minutes, you might be a person who can relate to some of these things I'm saying, and you see yourself in some of the examples and etc. But I'd love to hear what you think. Even just a thumbs up tells me something that this resonated with you. So thanks for being here. Those of you who are here week after week, I thank you for that. I think the world is a beautiful, changing place, and the growth that we're all getting depends on us, depends on each of us individually. So release that need to defend yourself, my friends, and I hope you have an amazing week ahead. Thanks for tuning in.